the remote work versus local. And
all those types of things were so critical to developing employees for many years.
Fortunately, a lot of the larger companies, the engineers have been getting some decent severance packages, instilling a culture of mentorship.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Sayva Spotlight. Today, we're doing a short format interview with Jared Sanderson, VP of Client Solutions, Managing Director of Technology at Sayva Solutions. Jared has 20 years in the recruiting and consulting space and is the go-to tech resource. You can find Jared on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/in/Sanderson Jared. Jared, thanks for joining us today on a Sayva Spotlight Short.
For sure, John. Thanks for having me on.
All right, so we're going to hop into some current events in the tech industry. So over the last 6 months, we've seen significant layoffs of software engineers in the Fortune 100 tech space, the likes of Meta, Amazon, Salesforce, and others doing large reductions in force. A recent Wall Street Journal article discussed the trend of laid off engineers from these large companies pivoting to smaller companies with the goal of prioritizing stability over prestige. What have you been seeing as it pertains to company preference for software engineers looking to make a career change?
Yeah, it's a great question. We've noticed that fortunately a lot of the larger companies, the engineers have been getting some decent severance packages. So they have had some time to look. So they aren't often rushing into the next role and really starting and exploring opportunities and making sure they're finding the right fit for their career and their growth. That being said, stability is a little bit more of a if you look at the 5 things that are important to you, is higher up on the list, asking the companies what's their cash flow position, what's their burn rate, where are they going to be? Are they going to be around in the next year? Because those things are important. Looking for a job can be hard, and people want to avoid the turnover and see a growth in their career. So stability is a little bit more important. But on the positive side, it does give some small to mid-sized employers an opportunity to capture some really top talent, especially companies that recently got funded and are doing some really exciting stuff. They can pull them, give them some good equity opportunities, and access the talent that they might not have had 6 months ago.
Yeah, it definitely seems like a benefit to probably some of those mid-market companies to be able to get somebody like that.
For sure. And one caveat is the remote work versus local, and we can possibly discuss that a little bit further down the line. But if the company is open for a remote employee, it does give them access to those individuals, especially if they live across the U.S.
Sure. All right. So next up, artificial intelligence. So AI, tools such as ChatGPT, they've been dominant in the news cycle as of late. I think we've all, played around with them to see what they can do. And I think we can agree that advanced AI is here to stay. How would you assess the impact of tools like ChatGPT in relation to the software and engineering job market? Is the AI functioning as a human replacement tool, or is it merely an asset to make developers and engineers more efficient?
If you're not viewing it as an asset, you're probably, as an engineer, always thinking, how do you make things better and build something? Then you're probably in the wrong career. It has to be used as an enhancer, and ultimately, it shouldn't take away your job. It should be able to give you the opportunity, and it might alter what your role may be in the future, because you can do more with a little less, or a code. You can write some code and leverage ChatGPT for different things in that capacity. But ultimately, I think there's going to be that more human element where, as an engineer, you're going to have to pay a little bit more attention to, from a QA process, making sure if you're using whatever tool, that it's coming out exactly as, correctly as how you're looking to do it. But also being able to be more of a business partner and looking at from a product roadmap of how you can use your engineering skills and kind of layering on certain tools to be more effective to support the business goals.
Yeah, great answer. And I think that this really should hopefully accelerate development of applications and other things, just due to the way it can write code. But I think I completely agree that there's going to have to be more review, right? Because you just have to be careful when it's flushing out lines and lines of code that it's doing what you want.
Yeah. And it's not just for engineers. Within the UI UX space, there's definitely an opportunity in that area to be very valuable, to do more with less. And I was speaking just a colleague who's more in the director of UI UX space, and he uses it a lot for pitch decks, and something that maybe used to take him an hour to an hour and a half. He can leverage some chat GTP, without putting any IP in to those into the deck, but spin something out and then kind of refine it. So, and he encourages his team. There's some people on the team that are a little bit more reserved and are not adapting. Like, well, I shouldn't use this. Whereas there's some other people that are really like, hey, I see this as an enabler. Let's leverage it to the best practice for us as a team to kind of have the most output and impact to the business.
Great. Next question. So the pandemic created a significant shift to remote work. As the pandemic's wound down, many companies have made a move to hybrid or back to 100% on-site job requirements. What are you seeing from enterprise level businesses in regards to, a work requirement standpoint or preference? And so as a follow-up, what are the desires of the candidate pools?
It's been an evolving door on that question. And I think it really stems from the leadership of the company. Did the company buy a building? How long is their lease? Some of those big factors play into it because they're spending all this money and they have space they want to actually use. However, from a trend standpoint, which is also something I did want to mention, is companies are also looking to improve their DEI and get access to talent and diversify their talent pool. So being able to have a remote workforce gives them more of that ability to attract and retain the best people, but also create more of a diverse population. Whereas you just go central local, you might not have that capacity and ability to do that as well. So there's just one benefit from a remote standpoint. But overall, it is across the board, and it's not a one size fits all. Software engineering teams are primarily focused on remote work. They seem to get a lot more done, more productive. Whereas, maybe on the operations or accounting side, people want a hybrid. They want the visibility. So there's internal equity challenges across, organizations, the CFO side, the CIO side, and within teams. There's certain leaders that really want people on site, and there's other leaders in that same organization that don't care. So it is really an evolving door of actually what's going to stick. But I think for companies, it's really important to factor in what's the benefit of someone coming in. There's definitely a strategy element, collaboration, culture that you can't get typically from a full remote team. But if you build in quarterly or monthly on-site get-togethers, that's really important. But you also lose the fact of communication. Some people don't communicate well remotely. Some people don't have the training. Earlier career graduates just don't have the access to some more senior level talent that they can collaborate with in person. So I feel that some companies are going to put their foot down and say, we want 2 to 3 days hybrid. And if you choose not to do that, you're going to, you're no longer going to be part of the company. And that's oftentimes why people call us and reach out to us from a recruitment standpoint and say, my company is looking for me to come on site. I have moved cities and I'm not moving back. So basically, I'm going to be out of a job. Whether the company ends up holding that bargain and pulling the plug at the end of the day is kind of to be seen to some extent, because some people keep pushing that out because they don't want to lose talent.
Sure. And you made a great point about how the role experience can sometimes dictate whether working remote or versus hybrid versus in person, which direction the company goes in. And from my experience in the accounting and finance realm is that unless you're a large company with a sophisticated training regimen or training program, it seems really difficult to train recent college grads in a remote environment. Accounting, for example, doing the over the shoulder, going by somebody's cubicle, all those types of things were so critical to developing employees for many years. What are you seeing from a recent college grad standpoint, whether it's accounting or tech roles, but how are employers getting these people up to speed? Again, if you are going the remote model,
it really falls down to the leader and the manager of that team or the lead. And so instilling a culture of mentorship from the ground, from the top down or from the ground up, really, where you have multiple layers where you're always having mentors mentor others to groom them up. So having, within a team, a lead that can mentor, a senior that can mentor, having, regular touch points calendared, having coffee chats with the team so that there can be this, the conversations and the questions that may not always happen, through, just through online chat within ordinary business. So I think a culture of mentorship is really important for those teams. And for if you're remote, getting, if it's whether there's some quarterly planning, or if there's teams where you have geographic, happy hours, just getting people together to collaborate and share ideas is really important.
Yeah, it seems like there just needs to be such a more thoughtful structure than perhaps there was before, when everybody would just come in the office.
Exactly. If you're sitting, it can be also on the flip side, remote employment can be somewhat isolating for certain people that if you don't leave your house ever, and then you're tasked with your company saying, well, I want you to go online now and do some online training, where you're, again, just sitting more in front of your computer. And so if it's just that, you have to integrate it with some interaction with actually real life people. Otherwise it just goes in one ear and out the other, and it's more of a checkbox versus actually a learning opportunity.
Absolutely. Well said. All right. Well, let's pivot to a last question. The capital markets. So a recent analysis by PitchBook showed that 2023 U.S. venture capital companies are on track to close 2023 with 73% less committed capital than in 2022. What's the current sentiment of the tech startups you're interacting with, and how is this changing their growth goals for 2023 and beyond?
Well, just even touching on the AI space, again, capital dried up pretty close, in early or mid 2022, and it's definitely skyrocketed since, I think, when November, or when ChatGPT and OpenAI released. So definitely a lot more funding now in that space than was before. But within the funding space, companies had to, that's what's caused and spawned a lot of the layoffs. The burn was pretty significant, and companies and leaders have had to make really tough choices of, we can't keep this until we get the next funding round, or until we start showing some revenue. And they've had to really lean out, or, really exit the company, close down the company. So companies have to be more thoughtful. They have to focus on products that are actually generating value pretty quickly. And the companies, depending on what cycle of the round of funding they're in, they have to just be really thoughtful and maybe slow down some hiring that they may have had in their plans, from the prior year.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely, just on the accounting end, we work with a lot of startups, and, this time last year, there were lots of Series A closings, seed rounds closings. We're just not seeing it as much. And then, the clients that maybe they closed around last year, they're modifying forecasts, maybe changing the way that they want to grow, trying to get a longer runway. And then, like you said, pivoting to the revenue generating products, maybe a little bit more, and doing a little less, R&D.
Well, companies don't want to take a down round and decrease their value of the equity. So would rather hold off unless they're on their last lifeline. So there is, on the flip side, there is a lot of larger companies with cash looking, to add to their portfolio, or complementary companies that, might be good assets to them. So they're definitely on the lookout at this time.
Yeah, there's some companies that are on sale, if you will.
Exactly. Yeah, some cheaper IP and or talent, right?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Jared. Well, that's all for today. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it, and I look forward to the next tech update.
Yeah, thanks, John. This is fun.